Good morning, everybody. It's a glorious day again, sun shining, but still all that snow. Be happy when it's gone. It's still cold. Man. 28 degrees, and then next week it's going to be 60. If that's not a roller coaster, I don't know what is. As always, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for watching my show. Please subscribe and like the video and share the video as always. We're going to talk a little bit about the cruise ships that were stuck at sea and still stuck at sea. The Wisconsin Assembly passed a bill yesterday, and it's going to the Senate today for review. Hopefully they'll get this done. I don't understand why it's taken so long, because basically all they're doing is approving all the work that the U.S. House and Senate did. Again, today starts nomination papers in Wisconsin. We're going to talk about that again a little bit, COVID update, and of course at the end of the show we'll have a little bit of food for thought. So let's talk a little bit about the cruise ships. Currently, the staff of cruise ships are still stuck on cruise ships. The news seems to indicate up to 90,000 people are stuck on cruise ships, still trying to work through all that. And see how much of that is true or not true. And nothing has been reported on the 2 cruise ships that were stuck at sea, and Florida said no go, and the Coast Guard said no go, and they've just kind of left those people out hanging to dry. It's interesting that we're not getting any information on what's happened with those 2 ships and what's happened with the people on the ships for this long. You know, you still got to deal with all the air. You still got to deal with people trying to get food and people working together. And would love to know if everybody on the ship now has COVID-19, or do these people have antibodies? You know, I mean, I've talked about that a lot. So hopefully those people are doing well. It would be nice to know what's happening with them. And it would probably be a good idea to call your member of the Senate, the U.S. Senate, or the U.S. House of Representatives if you feel so inclined. I know I will be doing that to find out what's happened with these people on these 2 ships. And yesterday, interestingly, I talked about the lack of response from the legislature, and to be honest, it's very disappointing. I mean, everybody's so excited about them doing this landmark thing of video conferencing, and it just seems like fluff. It just seems like a way to distract from the fact that the legislature is not doing anything new. I mean, they literally have waited this long to approve taking the money the federal government passed weeks ago. I mean, the federal government moved in a few days. But our legislature, I mean, if it could get any slower, we still don't have a bill. I mean, we've got a bill passed by the Assembly. Now it's going to the Senate. Then it's got to go to the governor. Then they got to move forward. So it's going to be the end of the week before this is done, if it's done at all. And we're still not going to have the money from the federal government. I mean, why it takes this long to do that is unbelievable. And the total lack of media attention and questioning is just unbelievable. Why wouldn't they be asking these questions weeks ago? Where is the money from the federal government? What are we doing? What are you doing to help the people since the governor decided to take this action? And it's interesting. I've got to grab something here. Somebody posted part of the legislation that covers statewide emergencies, and I've heard a lot. And if you've listened to my show when I spoke with the person that worked for one of the state senators, they're convinced there's nothing they can do because the governor has all the power for 60 days, which based on the statute, that's not true. So, I mean, I'm just going to read this to you. Subchapter 2, Powers and Duties Related to Emergency Management, Section 323.10. Declaration by governor. The governor may issue an executive order declaring a state of emergency for the state or any portion of the state if he or she determines that an emergency resulting from a disaster or the imminent threat of a disaster exists. If the governor determines that a public health emergency exists, he or she may issue an executive order declaring a state of emergency related to public health for the state or any portion of the state, and may designate the Department of Health Services as the lead state agency to respond to that emergency. If the governor determines that the emergency is related to computer or telecommunication systems, he or she may designate the Department of Administration as the lead agency to respond to that emergency. A state of emergency shall not exceed 60 days unless the state of emergency is extended by joint resolution of the legislature. And we've heard nothing. So, they're going to wait 60 days. A copy of the executive order shall be filed with the Secretary of State. The executive order, now this is the really important part, the executive order may be revoked at the discretion of either the governor by executive order or the legislature by joint resolution. So the things I've been saying for weeks about getting something in front of the governor, even though he may not sign it, it doesn't say that the governor needs to sign it. They can override the governor by joint resolution. And we override the governor all day long. So I'm highly recommending that anybody seeing this video and all the people that watch on a regular basis get on the phone, get to your representative, email them and say, why don't we have a joint resolution defining what we agree with the governor on in terms of this emergency, and was it warranted, and when are we turning the lights back on? And as I've said before, the best way to handle this, if you get no response, is don't vote for them again. Because they should be responding to that under that legislation and not be making excuses that they can't do anything. It's not true. And I don't like when people lie. The Senate today is reviewing the bill the Assembly passed, and what's interesting is the bill basically just accepts money and creates avenues for them to get more money from the federal government. It still does not address what we're doing with Badger Care and getting people health insurance. That should be number one, making sure that people who are currently unemployed have health insurance. We should be doing that, and I'll be saying it until this whole thing is over and probably past that. Hopefully during my campaign to represent the state of Wisconsin in District 7, I'll get that opportunity to bring that point home, that the do-nothing Tom Tiffany's and anybody else like him in our Senate right now are doing nothing to address that issue, and they have plenty of money to cover it, and they're just refusing to do anything with it. So again, if you're seeing this and you agree with it, start calling the Senate, start calling the Assembly and telling them what you want them to know. I'm not sure he's going to go anywhere, but the biggest thing you can do is remind them that we're going to decide if we're happy with their performance in November. And we should. And if they don't pass legislation to help people with health insurance, and they don't pass legislation to increase the state amount, not the federal amount that's being added, but the state amount of $370 a week during the emergency, we should vote them out of office as well. If this is an unprecedented time, like many people want to say, then it takes unprecedented measures and things that we're not usually willing to do to help people get through it. And thank you to all businesses out there who are making decisions on their own to help, but this has been put on them. They didn't vote to have this happen. This was put on us by the governor. The governor and the legislature need to take responsibility for their actions and protect people's livelihoods, protect people's homes, protect them from the stress of dealing with how to pay their bills. Anything less is irresponsible and unconscionable. So hopefully we'll see more than just this bill, because this bill doesn't cut it. Unfortunately, we have never been allowed to see it before they voted on it, which you should find concerning. there are plenty of ways to get this information out, and the media hasn't chased it, and the legislature hasn't put it out there for us to see. Again, in the state of Wisconsin, again, once with our legislature and the Wisconsin Elections Commission's doing nothing, the nomination process is starting. So, don't be surprised if somebody comes banging on your door. We want to believe that everybody's complying with the stay-at-home order and not doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. But I'm going to bet that they will be showing up at people's doors because they need to make sure their candidates get their signatures, and there's a lot of signatures to get. And if you're concerned about that or have questions, as always, please call or text 715-352-0801. Or message me on Facebook, or message me through the Facebook page if you've liked that page, or see me on Twitter. Or listen to my podcast. These shows will soon be broadcast, at least on iTunes, as a podcast. Okay, so the COVID cases update. We're going to do a little update here. As of yesterday from the CDC, which are the numbers, as I've said, I'm taking care of. So updated April 14th, 2020, we have a total cases of 579,005, which the cases of COVID is now reached the level of the flu hospitalizations. And we haven't even gotten close to people being hospitalized. Now, it also reports we have 22,252 deaths so far. And again, we're going to have 32,000 or more people with the flu passing away and dying from complications related to the flu. So I'm just trying to get that chart up to show you guys again this morning of where we're at, and it's not coming up. So let me see what else I can see here. It's locking up on me again. All right, well, I'm going to have to start printing this out in the morning. And then interesting to note that in terms of what may be coming for us here in Wisconsin, Minnesota has extended their stay-at-home to May 4th. And I don't believe the legislature has done anything in Minnesota or even vetted in on whether or not they agree with it, have taken any vote on it. And remember, when they don't, and this is all done, and they're up there being grilled about it during a debate, they're going to say, well, I didn't say anything. And that's probably the worst thing that they could have done. And no news from our governor. If you follow our legislatures on Twitter and you're following Do Nothing Tom Tiffany, their tweets are ridiculous. They tell us nothing, and everybody's on Twitter. So how can you not be releasing information, even in small forms, for the bill if you can't get the whole bill out there? But last time I checked, we've got plenty of access through the internet, and the bill's written, and they had to read it in order to vote on it. And the bill could have been released to the public for them to review, but they don't want us to review it. And so today, that's about all I have for today. I am doing a bunch of research again today, so the show should be a little longer tomorrow. And I'm going to leave you with, again, food for thought. And today's food for thought is, I want you to think about what it looks like when a government or dictators move toward socialist or monarch rule. And I want you to think hard about that. And I may have covered this before, and I'm going to do a little better job on making sure I'm not redundant, but very concerning what's coming out from New York and California, who have been just very vocal about their desire to not do what is directed by the president or the federal government. And so when you have one person in a state making decisions for everybody in that state and not doing the democratic thing for the republic and having the legislature vote to agree or disagree with them, then there's only one reason they're doing it, and they want control. And like in the state of Michigan, in other parts of this country, we're seeing people who abuse power doing things that just make absolutely no sense at all. And they even admit that we never got close to taxing our hospitals, and they've had everything they've needed, even though the media came out and said day by day how terrible it was. So, just food for thought. Keep it in the front of your mind as we move through this and we move into the elections. And hopefully, you can make an informed decision. And again, if you ever want to know more, please comment down below. Please call us at 715-352-0801 and go ahead and text us at that number as well. I look forward to hearing from you. Hope you have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.